This is Lois Wetzel, and I'm reading to you from a book I've written called Akashic Records, Case Studies of Past Lives. I was given the ability to do past life readings by the Archangel Gabriel in a very vivid dream in the mid-1980s and began actually doing them in the 1990s. This is a past life reading for someone I'm calling Sallie Hopkins. I always change people's names to protect their identity. Sallie is a relatively lively and happy, attractive, golden-haired young married woman with a preschool-aged daughter. She has come for a reading to learn more about her husband, Ted, and their daughter, Megan. She is also curious about any ties with an old boyfriend she inexplicably cannot get out of her head, Mac. She's wondering about the context of their past lives together. This is primarily out of a spiritual curiosity. She's really not having any problems except for the annoying tendency to think about Mac. After the explanation of how past life readings can assist in the spiritual growth process, the session begins. Lois: I am seeing you as a young man who is a member of a tribe we would now call Arabs. These people were the precursors of the Bedouins, and this was hundreds of years ago. Your tribe lived in the desert, and they were nomadic. At some point, a different group of nomads, marauders actually, came into your camp and stole a vast quantity of your belongings and, most importantly, your food. You and another group of men return to camp to find that this has happened and give chase. Mac is one of the men in your group. He is a close friend of yours and a relative, perhaps a cousin. He and you grew up together, having known each other since infancy. This group you were chasing came from far away. You followed them out of the desert and onto solid land. This rocky territory was quite alien to you, as you were accustomed to the cushiony feeling of sand under the horse's hooves. The feeling of solid ground with huge rocks that did not move at all the way that sand moved around was totally alien to you and your cohorts and quite disorienting. It was almost like a sailor stepping onto dry land for the first time. The sensation of the solid, hard vibration suddenly began to shake you as the horse's hooves hit solid, rocky ground. This sent shock waves through your bodies. The odd sensation affected your ability to focus on your surroundings. You all felt like you were being beaten up. The horses did not like it either. The raiders you were chasing had superior weaponry and were accustomed to this terrain. They easily ambushed your group. You personally were gravely wounded, and the group knew you were going to die, and for that matter, you knew as well. Lying there bleeding, you urged them to leave without you, as you knew that they would not survive if they tried to carry you in your wounded state. Everyone clearly understood that you were dying in either case, and so they did leave. Even though you knew that this was the right thing for them to do, you died feeling horribly abandoned and sobbing with an indescribably intense longing for your cousin, who is your ex-boyfriend Mac in this current lifetime, to come back and get you. Your cousin was slightly older and had always protected you. Since you died with this horrible longing and the feelings of abandonment, even though you knew it was not logical, you have an imprint on your soul where Mac is concerned. I would be quite surprised if you do not currently experience an illogical fear of abandonment and longing where he is concerned. Do you have questions about this lifetime? Sallie: No, but that totally explains how I feel about Mac. I feel like I cannot live without him. Lois: Well, as you integrate this past life, now that you know about it, you will begin to see those feelings and fears about him begin to dissipate. Would you like me to continue to the next lifetime? Sallie: Yes. Lois: I am seeing a dazzling, glorious, and enormous field of flowers which extends for miles. You are blissfully walking along among these fragrant spikes of blossoms, eyes closed, inhaling the fragrance and reveling and reveling in the sun on your face. You are beaming, and your face radiates peace and joy. These flowers are planted in curving rows, and some of the plants come up as high as the middle of your chest. It is a daily experience of intense sensuality, the wind, the flowers, the sun, and the warm earth beneath your bare feet. When it comes time to harvest, you and your companions grab the stalks down by the earth and cut them off. Then you beat the top ends where the flowers are onto a tarp. You collect seeds like that, or at different times of the year in different fields you might collect their oils or dry the flowers for use as herbs in medicinal applications. You would also create perfumes and lotions with the oils from the flowers and sell or trade these. There are several varieties of flowers in different fields, so you were surrounded by vibrant color. This was a very pleasant lifetime. You were all highly contented. The next scene takes everyone completely by surprise. One day along comes an army just out of the blue. This was absolutely not expected. No one had heard that they were advancing in your direction. No scouts from towns that had been conquered came to warn you. The only precursor was the vibration coming from the earth as they rhythmically marched toward you. They literally shook the earth as they approached. This was fearsome. This was a vast army spread out as far as the eye could see to the horizon. They continued marching in your direction, and you were just stunned. Everyone was. You almost could not comprehend what was happening and just froze up. This was the Roman army, and they marched straight at you. They trampled the entire place. The enormous fields of flowers were smashed underfoot, releasing waves of fragrance as this massive army made their way across the land to conquering the country where you lived. Your way of life was gone forever from that day forward. The Roman army took up residence and completely took over, turning everyone you knew into slaves. Eventually, the smarter members of the population in an occupied country will befriend the conqueror, so this is what you did. And in spite of yourself, you were drawn to one particular soldier. You fell for him, and the two of you became lovers. There was a child produced at this union. Then your lover was called back to Rome, and you were left with the child. This man was younger than you by a few years, and you had this handsome male child as your only memory of him. You raised the child alone, and your neighbors are initially furious with you for having his child and lovingly raising him. Yet there are a lot of other women your age doing the same thing. It becomes more accepted later on, but at first it was difficult. You never saw the Roman soldier again, and the child looked just like him, so you were constantly reminded. Living to be an old lady, you thought about the soldier on a daily basis, but he was never able to return to you. He was killed in another military campaign not long after he left your side, but there was no way for you to know that, and you were left wondering. That Roman soldier has reincarnated in this lifetime as your daughter. You have come together in this particular life to have a very long, loving relationship, which you were unable to have in that previous lifetime. Now, this is very important, Sallie. There will come a time when Megan needs to travel, to leave and go far away, but you need to know that this time she will come back. It is very important that you know that. She needs to go a far distance from you and then come back. This is part of your soul agreement with her. You may want to prevent her leaving, but it would be unwise. The guardians of the records are saying that she simply must go away and come back. Just let her go. The experience will be very healing for you both. Questions? Sallie shakes her head no, and there's a long pause. Lois, I see you rowing a tiny white boat on a calm turquoise sea. This sweet little boat with highly polished oars is maybe big enough for 3 people, no more than that. I'm hearing clearly that you're off the west coast of Italy, and you are from a fishing village. You're dropping a string overboard with a hook and bait on the end, and there are no nets on board. You eventually catch some little fish. You're about 11 years old, and this fishing expedition is only for amusement. You are alone and under strict orders not to go far from shore, and you do not. Yet, as you are relaxing on the water, casually dipping your fishing string into the sea, a large animal comes underneath the boat and knocks it over. You hit your head as the boat tips over, and you're unconscious, just long enough to drown. You needed to remember this so that you know that even though some unexpected things can happen suddenly like that, we cannot predict or control them. They are rare, so if you worry a lot that something's going to come like boom out of the clear blue sky and ruin everything completely without warning, this is why. The guardians want you to know that this was one of your prearranged possible checkout points in this lifetime. For every lifetime in the planning stages prior to reincarnation, each soul plans multiple checkout points where it can choose to honorably leave that lifetime depending upon how things are coming along. It's like a safety valve on a pressure cooker, a way to get out safely and without penalty. And so, in the childhood in Italy, where you drowned, the soul had decided to go ahead and check out. There's no reason to fear sudden accidents, since there was nothing you could have done to prevent that. On one level, you wanted it. Your soul checked out because of external circumstances which were about to unfold in the village where you lived. It was so severe that your soul didn't think you could handle it. The personality was not strong enough, and it would have gone through your teen years, and the soul wisely took you out of harm's way. Sallie, is this just about me, or as a general rule, is this about my family, my worrying about them? Lois, generally worrying about everyone you love and yourself, because as you were passing over to the other side, you were thinking, gee, this could happen to anybody. Sudden deadly accidents can happen to anyone. I was powerless to prevent this. And that fear was imprinted at the soul level. Sallie, so it was just too hard and I decided to leave? Lois, at the pre-birth planning stage, you set up this event as a possible soul lesson. There was an event that was about to occur in your village and continue for about 8 years. But when the soul took stock of the situation at this designated checkout point, it said, oh no, this kid just cannot take it. I am out of here. It would have taken too many lifetimes to heal due to the spiritual scar you would have incurred had you lived through the horror that was about to unfold. And then the fishing accident occurred. You just got bonked on the head and boom, you were gone. Sallie laughs. There's a pause, and then Lois begins to view the next life. Lois. Okay. Yes, I'm willing to go here. This is a future life, and I usually do not want to go there, but I'm giving my permission to see this. The guardians are asking if I'm willing. Future lives are not as cast in stone as the past, which sounds odd since they're actually all happening simultaneously. But anyway, I'm seeing this one now. They're telling me you need to know about this so you can be prepared when it happens. You are a female crew member on a spacecraft somewhere in deep space. There's an explosion and you get to an escape pod, but before you can get on, there's something on the ground on the loading dock near the pod. You think about grabbing it up, and a lot depends upon whether or not you pick this thing up, okay? It is a lurid, bright yellow color, and if it held fluid, it would hold about a half a gallon. So when this happens, you only have a split second to make up your mind, but you must grab it. Do you understand? It is crucial that you do this. Please stop and grab that thing and take it with you. Otherwise, you will not make it. Something will fail in that pod, and you will need the yellow thing to generate heat. I feel the cold right now, and my body feels almost frozen out among the stars. It is very cold. The next thing I see is that you're in the pod, hurtling through space, and the stars are a mind-boggling, magnificent sight. Looking at them puts you into an altered state of consciousness, feeling a piercing joy in your heart. The pod has a homing device, and you will be directed to safety. The only thing that could prevent your making it back home is if you do not have that yellow device. It will prevent your freezing to death. And it is important for you to survive because you are carrying a baby who your civilization needs desperately to be born. The future turning out correctly depends in a major way upon your having that baby, and you do not even know that you're pregnant when you get into the pod. So do not hesitate. Grab that yellow device before you get into the pod, okay? Sallie. Okay, I will. Lois. I'm being told that this is all for today. This is all you need to know about at this time. I've not seen any lifetimes with your current husband, probably because you have no huge karma to balance with him. That relationship looks pretty safe and healthy. The guardians of the Akashic Records tell me what you most need to see at the time you come to me. Lois's notes. After the reading, Sallie wanted to know if dying in the desert from blood loss was the only lifetime she'd had with her friend Mac, and the only one that caused this deep longing she experienced for him all the time. She did agree that the overwhelming sense of longing for him was a huge factor for her, even though she was quite happily married to someone else. I told her that this was not the only lifetime, but it was the seed lifetime, the one that planted the seed of that longing, which had continued through every lifetime she'd ever had with Mac. This caused her sense of not being able to live without him. Had he stayed, I saw after the reading, he would have died and left the group leaderless. The group all would have been killed, and these were all the young, strong men of the tribe. The tribe would not have survived without him. So the choice was either him, Sallie, or the whole tribe. The other thing Sallie said was that she had felt this enormous wave of relief sweep over her at the point when I told her that, while fishing, the boat had been turned over, bumped her on the head, and the boy died. She asked if that relief was due to the fact that something horrible was about to happen in her village. I replied that yes, I felt certain that was the soul's relief she was feeling, knowing they would not have to experience that impending horror. As we discussed this, I was able to see that the intolerable event was an invading army which came into the village and were going to capture this teenage boy and torture him and others. They would torture him mostly, as his family seemingly had money, which is why he had the luxury of fishing for pleasure at the age of 11 or so. They would choose him to torture, thinking his family had hidden money that they would produce to stop his suffering. They had none hidden, so the suffering would have been prolonged and great. What they were finally going to do after months of torture was genital mutilation followed by suffocation. This was a common thing for the more barbaric armies to do back in those days. The thoughts that would have gone through the boy's head in the minutes before death would have been too horrific as well. Judging that this would have been too traumatic for this particular child and for this soul, no lessons would be learned. The soul chose the fishing accident as a safety net for the soul. So when Sallie heard me tell her about this accident, she was surprised to feel relief. But upon hearing that it was because of impending torture, the relief made perfect sense. Months later, I spoke with her, and Sallie volunteered that her longing for Mac had dissipated. She seldom thought about him any longer. This was a significant relief for her. She was noticing that she did not worry about horrible things happening suddenly to family members, Not that she was careless, but that she did not have this nervous undercurrent inside her all the time. Overall, she felt more relaxed. She noticed that since she found out she'd been hit on the head in the childhood in Italy, she had fewer headaches when out in the sun. Before that, the glare of the sun on shiny surfaces, like water, had given her a powerful headache on the left side of her head. Sallie said the reading of past lives from the Akashic Records had healed her in many ways, some of them quite unexpected. If you're interested in reading more from my book, it's available on Amazon and Kindle. Akashic Records, Case Studies of Past Lives. And this is Lois Wetzel. Thank you.